For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6 verse 21. Jesus had to draw our attention to what is obvious so that we might realize how closely treasure and heart are connected, and many of us still fail to notice this fact. Biblical tradition offers several interpretations for each of these words. We can observe that biblical texts evoke the word treasure when referring to the objects of the temple in Jerusalem taken away by Nebuchadnezzar. The same term is also used to identify the people who were deported to Babylon. Wisdom literature is emphatic in affirming that wisdom is the true treasure and that we should receive God's correction as a treasure rather than as a burden. In turn, the prophets proclaim that the great treasure Israel possesses, yet carelessly despises, is God's free and undeserved love. Jesus, in his preaching, teaches us to seek the kingdom as a treasure which, once revealed, renders everything else of lesser importance. The same is true of the word heart. While it is considered the source of thoughts, feelings, and will, it is also the vessel into which the love of God is poured. What makes us like God, the one who conceives and creates us, is something that begins to take shape in the depths of our hearts, just as we were conceived in the heart of God. It would be good if this association always remained at this level. However, Jesus gives us a clear warning about the danger of the antagonism to which we may expose ourselves. A small lapse can cause us to cross the bridge between heaven and earth, between light and darkness, between God and money, and between trust and anxiety. It is precisely these dangerous associations involving treasure and heart that the evangelist Matthew invites us to reflect on throughout chapter 6. The first warning speaks of the danger of allowing our hearts to become dependent on public approval. Beware of practicing your righteousness before others in order to be seen by them. Practicing righteousness, in the Hebrew understanding of the time, meant performing deeds that made a person righteous before God, the chief ones being almsgiving, prayer, and fasting. It is important to note that Jesus does not abolish the need to observe this kind of righteousness. Such practices were, in the past, and continue to be today, a clear sign of the action of the Spirit of God within us. In his ministry, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving all held a prominent place, because they are the most immediate responses we can offer to the love of God that compels us to love our neighbor without measure. The qualification Jesus makes is that these practices should be carried out in the intimacy of God's presence, not publicly, nor in a way that seeks to gain prestige. The second warning carries the force of a commandment. Jesus speaks of the danger of placing our hearts under the power of riches. You cannot serve God and mammon. Mammon was the Aramaic word used to designate the spiritual entity that supposedly governed finances in the ancient world, a kind of Wall Street of that time. With these words, Jesus highlights the conflict between allegiances, for he does not say that it is difficult or even forbidden to serve two masters, he says it is impossible. This warning demands a decision. Whom will we serve, God or mammon? God or money? When we find ourselves in the terrible anguish of providing for our basic needs, Jesus proposes what seems absurd: look at the birds. However allegorical we may judge his words to be, what argument do we have to refute this third warning? Is this not exactly how the birds are sustained? Does God not clothe the lilies with splendor? These unsettling comparisons serve to alert us to how fruitless despair is over things that escape our control, and how futile anxiety about tomorrow can be. Seeking first the kingdom of God in its fullness is the definitive solution to all that afflicts us. Seeking the kingdom of God above all else, in its fullness, comes with something beyond our ability to measure, since it has never entered the human heart how wonderful the treasure God has stored in his own heart. Jesus was careful to associate everything related to human life with the promise of an infinitely more glorious reality, not only because God knows everything we truly need, but because of the certainty that his Father has been at work until now, and that he himself is also at work.